Welcome to our deep dive into the world of a young Bill Gates. Before Microsoft, before the billions. This chapter of his autobiography takes us back to his teenage years. It's really a look at the events and experiences that shaped his passion for computers and set him on this incredible path.
Yeah, and what I find really interesting is how it highlights those seemingly ordinary moments that can actually have these extraordinary impacts. You know how sometimes you look back and think, wow, that one thing really changed everything. It's like that.
Absolutely. So we're talking about Seattle in the late 1960s. Bill Gates, this teenager completely obsessed with computers, is sneaking out at night to get his coding fix. Can you imagine riding the bus with hospital workers at like 3 in the morning just to get to a computer?
And that's where this company, ch6, comes in. They basically gave him and his friends this incredible opportunity, unlimited access to a PDP-10, which was a pretty powerful computer for the time. I mean, just think about that for a second. Unlimited access to this cutting-edge technology was a game changer for him.
It really was. He was able to put in what he calls his first 500 hours of programming practice. And I think that really emphasizes the importance of early experiences, especially when you're talking about developing a skill or a passion. Those early hours, they really lay the foundation.
500 hours, that's a lot of dedication for anyone,
Right.
let alone a teenager, right? And it speaks to the idea that success in any field often comes down to consistent effort, to putting in the time, even if it feels like you're just playing around like he was at that stage.
Right. It wasn't all serious business, though. He was experimenting, figuring things out. His early bug reports, as he calls them, are hilarious. Things like spin all the tape tries at once, weird things happen. It shows this playful curiosity, this willingness to kind of break things to understand how they work.
It's that classic learn-by-doing approach. He wasn't just passively absorbing information. He was getting his hands dirty, pushing the limits. And, sometimes the best learning comes from those moments when things go wrong, when you have to figure out why.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then he starts writing actual programs, beginning with something simple, a digital recipe card for his mom's meatloaf. Pretty practical for a budding programmer.
Exactly. It shows how he was already starting to think about applying his skills, using code to solve real-world problems, even if it's just digitizing a family recipe. But then he takes this leap. He creates a complex war simulation game.
And it wasn't just about entertainment either. He was modeling real-world factors, understanding strategy, building something with real applications. It's almost like you can see that spark, that future drive to create software that actually solves problems.
Yeah, it really foreshadows his later work, doesn't it? I mean, he wasn't just content with playing games. He wanted to build them, to understand how they worked. It's that same drive that led him to create Microsoft and revolutionize the tech industry.
There's this little detail I love in the chapter. He writes, Bill Gates owns this book. He wants it, give it back to him. Inside his programming book. It's kind of endearing, right? It shows that even this future tech giant was once just a teenager, passionate about his hobby, and maybe a little possessive of his things.
Oh, absolutely. It humanizes him. It reminds us that even the most successful people start somewhere with a thirst for knowledge and those little quirks that make us all unique. And speaking of thirst for knowledge, Gates becomes fascinated by machine language.
Right. Machine language. It's the most fundamental type of computer code, the language that the computer itself understands. It's like wanting to speak directly to the machine, bypassing all the layers of software. And Gates, he's drawn to that power, that level of control.
It was the foundation of everything else. He was driven to understand those building blocks of software, the essence of how computers operate. It wasn't just learning a language, it was unlocking the secrets of the digital world.
And to get access to the information they needed, the TTS-10 manuals. He and his friend Paul resorted to some pretty unconventional methods. Dumpster diving behind ch6, sifting through the trash for knowledge, desperate to learn more.
Can you imagine that? I mean, today we have information at our fingertips, right? Back then they had to be so resourceful. It speaks volumes about their dedication, their unwavering belief that they could learn anything if they set their minds to it.
2 teenagers, late at night, surrounded by coffee-stained printouts and crumpled code, trying to decipher the secrets of machine language. It's inspiring, in a way. But this free ride at ch6, this unlimited access, it couldn't last forever. They started charging for computer time. And that's when things get really interesting.
That's where we get into the story of, well, maybe the FBI and the impact it had on a young Bill Gates. But we'll save that for the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we left off with ch6, cutting off the free computer time for Bill Gates and his friends. They've got this taste for programming, they're hooked, and now suddenly there are restrictions. Makes you wonder, how would you react if something you loved doing was taken away,
Well, this is where things get really interesting. They discover a flaw in the system, a way to access passwords, and basically get back into that PDP-10. Think of it like a classic hacker move, driven by that insatiable need to keep coding.
But were they thinking about the consequences? I mean, it's one thing to be curious, but this was unauthorized access.
That's a good question. And honestly, the chapter doesn't really delve into that. What it does show is that unwavering determination to keep learning, keep coding, even if it meant bending the rules. It highlights that sometimes brilliance and passion can lead to these ethical gray areas. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it. It's that push and pull between curiosity and responsibility, right? And then, of course, there's the whole mysterious FBI agent thing.
Right. This figure appears, reprimanding them, giving them this stern warning. It seems to have really shaken Gates, even instilled a sense of shame. It's fascinating how a single encounter like that can have such a lasting impact.
Do we even know for sure if it was actually an FBI agent? It's almost like this shadowy figure representing authority, the consequences of their actions.
Exactly. Whether it was the FBI or someone from C-Cubed, the message was clear. There are boundaries. Even when you're pursuing something you love, there are lines you can't cross. It's a lesson that's so relevant even today with all the ethical questions surrounding technology.
Definitely. It's like this coming-of-age moment for Gates, realizing that his actions have real-world consequences. But this chapter isn't just about computers and coding, right? It also shows us Gates, the adventurer. He goes on this grueling hike along Vancouver Island's life-saving trail.
Oh yeah, this trail was not for the faint of heart. Rugged coastlines, dense forests, cliffs, rivers to ford. It was designed for, like, shipwrecked sailors, not casual hikers.
And remember, he forgot to break in his brand new, expensive Italian hiking boots. His heels were so blistered afterwards. He says they look like the inside of a jelly donut. You can imagine the pain.
It's pretty vivid imagery. It says a lot about his resilience, though, you know, that determination to push through discomfort and achieve his goal. It's like he's channeling that coding persistence into conquering this challenging trail.
It's interesting, right? He's got this laser focus when it comes to computers, but he also craves those real-world challenges, pushing himself physically, testing his limits. But let's not forget about his mischievous side. The class clown streak.
Oh, definitely. He talks about acting up in school, making inappropriate comments, even telling an actress he thought her play was terrible. It's like he's trying on different identities, trying to figure out who he is.
It's so relatable, right? That teenage angst, that need to push buttons and test boundaries.
Yeah.
But then there's the shift at Lakeside, his school. They had this system called free study, where top students were exempt from supervised study hall.
It was like a badge of honor, a symbol of freedom and achievement. And at first, Gates wasn't part of that elite group. He's watching his friend Kent, who excelled academically, enjoying this privilege. And it seems to spark something in him. This desire to prove himself, not through mischief, but through academics.
It wasn't just about being smart. It was about leveraging that intelligence to earn respect, to unlock opportunities. And then comes the regional math exam. Gates, still in 8th grade, outscores almost everyone, including the high school math team.
And it's not just about the score. The senior who got the highest score, he goes out of his way to congratulate Gates. It's this moment of validation, of recognition from an older peer that seems to have a profound impact on him.
It's like a turning point, right? He realizes he can excel academically if he puts in the effort, if he channels that energy and intelligence. And suddenly it's not just about computers anymore. It's about this newfound focus on achievement, on reaching his full potential.
It's a pivotal moment for sure. It sets the stage for the next chapter in his life. A chapter focused on academic excellence and, eventually, that drive to make a real difference in the world.
It's amazing how all these experiences, the coding, the FBI incident, that grueling hike, they all come together and lead to this shift in Bill Gates. He starts to see this connection between hard work and success, and not just in math, but potentially in any field.
It's like all these pieces of the puzzle are falling into place. He's realizing that intelligence alone isn't enough. You have to combine it with effort, with dedication, and that's when you can really achieve something remarkable.
He even develops this theory that if you're good at math, you can be good at anything, which, might be a bit of a simplification, but it becomes this driving force for him, this belief that he can excel in any area if he sets his mind to it.
Right. It speaks to his ambition. He's not afraid to challenge conventional wisdom, to test his limits. And more importantly, he's starting to think about purpose. It's not just about personal achievement anymore. It's about using his abilities to make a real impact.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Bill Gates' early years, what are some of the key takeaways? What can our listeners, who might be on their own journeys of self-discovery, learn from his story?
I think the biggest takeaway is that even extraordinary individuals like Bill Gates go through these periods of exploration and growth. It's about embracing opportunities, facing challenges head on, and learning from those experiences, whether they're successes or setbacks.
It's a good reminder that our passions, when combined with hard work and a willingness to learn, can lead to amazing things that we might not even be able to imagine at the start.
And those first 500 hours, that dedication to developing your skills, it really matters. Whether it's coding, writing, music, whatever you're passionate about, putting in the time is crucial.
Absolutely. So to all our listeners out there, I encourage you, embrace your curiosity, seek out those opportunities, and remember that the path to success is rarely a straight line. It's a journey with twists and turns and unexpected detours.
And who knows, maybe your journey will lead you to make a mark on the world, just like that teenage Bill Gates did, one step at a time.
That's it for our deep dive into the early life of Bill Gates.